I'd advise to spend better time on fewer applications to the jobs you genuinely want and focus on making those applications relevant to the job you're applying for. Candidates are in a world where they are having to look at how can I stand out, how can I go that extra mile. And when you go to these networking events, you've got to put a face to a name. You've got to go and say hi. So the three of us very dramatically gave up our jobs, went off on this crazy journey as a three, and seeing if we could take on the CV and give candidates something better to go to businesses with. And that's why Vizzy exists. It's quite incredible. Like, we're seeing some amazing stories around neurodiversity, how that candidate is turning their neurodiversity into their strengths and what makes them different to other candidates and what those strengths are actually bringing to businesses.
Welcome back to Female Founder Stories, Women at the Top Told by a Teen. You and I are going behind the scenes of entrepreneurship, hearing from incredible women about the grit, the setbacks, and the breakthroughs it takes to build something real, told in a way that makes you think, I could do that too. Most CVs tell the story of what you've done, not who you are. Jess Woodward Jones is changing that. She's the co-founder of Vizzy, a platform that reimagines how young people present themselves, helping them showcase their personality, passions, and potential, not just their grades or experience. Before launching Vizzy with her brother and husband, Jess spent years in theatre marketing, working with some of the biggest West End and Broadway productions. And now she's using that same creativity and storytelling to help young people shine in a different spotlight. So Jess, welcome to Female Founder Stories. Thank you so much for being on this. It's amazing to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Sia. It's lovely to be here.
So can we go right back to when you worked in theatre marketing with huge shows? What made you swap that world for tech? And did anything from your theatre life help you as a founder now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had such a happy time in the theatre industry. It was kind of everything you think it is. Very fast pace, some incredible people, the creativity, the amount of teamwork that has to go into putting on a show, from everything from the box office team to the producers to the lighting technicians, the makeup artists, the costume designers, the actors, the writers. It's quite phenomenal. There's kind of hundreds of people involved in this one production, all coming together and trying to get everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. It's not easy, but it was an incredible experience for me, and I loved it. And I was very lucky because I was marketing director at this particular theatre in London. So a lot of what I did was quite technical in a way. The majority of our sales were all online. The show was sold online more. We were kind of transitioning into that period where only 10% of tickets were sold over the phone and 90% were now on the website and stuff. So I became really interested in e-commerce and user experience. So when people would land on our website, where do they go from there? How easy is it to book a ticket? How quickly can they book a ticket? But also at the same time, because we're telling stories in the theatre, how long can you get people staying online with you and reading your interviews that you've done with actors and stuff? How long can you get people staying with the brand and becoming, real fans of what we're doing? So I did some incredible work when at that time in my life, I led the first live play that was shown on Instagram in partnership with Instagram, which was incredible. So considering it was all live theatre, my role was very tech heavy, actually. And I built 2 websites in my time with them and integrations, all of that good stuff. And how I went from marketing director in the theatre to a tech starter-upper in recruitment, effectively, it was really, I'd really say it was my brother. He had the idea of Vizzy. He was working in India at the time when the pandemic hit and he lost his job. So he flew home and was having to rewrite a CV again. And it was that experience which he thought was broken and very frustrating. and having to tell his story in a 1 or 2 pages, on a CV, black and white, very limiting data, asking for his education, which was like 10 years ago. It all just felt very at odds with who he actually is and where he wanted to go. And all the skills he'd accumulated, he just didn't feel he could share it on a CV. So he came up with this idea of Vizzy, and I had just had my second child at the time, so I was on maternity leave from the theatre, and I was watching very closely what my brother was doing out, job hunting and things like this. And when the time came to go back to the theatre, Vizzy had become very much a kind of side hustle with my brother Joe and my husband Chris. They were both building it. Joe had found a job at the time, but he was still quite fixated with this idea of Vizzy. And Chris, my husband, was a finance consultant in the city at the time, so he was working on Vizzy in all of his spare time as well with Joe. They just got very excited by the idea, and so I did too. And when the time came to going back to the theatre, I felt this was just a kind of opportunity that was calling out for me, and I really wanted to help the boys. I thought I could bring some of my skill sets to what they were creating with Vizzy. So the three of us very dramatically gave up our jobs and went off on this crazy journey as a three, and seeing if we could take on the CV and give candidates something better to go to businesses with, and that's how I fell into this tech startup world.
I mean, I can really see the translation, like collaboration in the theatre, what you talked about, I mean, and I've been in school productions, and I know that does not translate to anything that you've been doing, but even still, like working with the tech team and rehearsals for like lighting and all those different things which have to come together. And I feel like that's exactly what's been translated into your business, with all three of you, yourself, your husband, and your brother, making like coming together with all your different strengths and kind of fueling them into this business. And I also think it really shows how kind of mistakes or things that don't seem to be going your way, like how your brother was, he didn't have a job for a while, but that just gave him an idea. And it's all those small problems which then lead to these brilliant businesses. And so that kind of leads on to my second question about, so you've said that the CV is letting people down in terms of it's black and white, it doesn't let you represent yourself properly. And also, you've mentioned that the hiring has become AI on AI. So what do you think needs to change so that people applying for jobs, and especially young people, are seen for who they actually are?
It's a great question, Sia. There's a couple of layers to it. I mean, what I would recommend to young people in the job market today, it's tough. It's really tough. I think the latest stat is something like there's 140 applications per grad role at the moment. And the businesses that we work with, your Louis Vuittons, your Virgins, your Tiffany and Co's, I'm telling you now, it's a lot more than 140 applications per grad role. You want to work with these really great brands and these great roles, then the competition's really, really fierce. And these brands really want to find great talent. That they really do. But it's hard at the moment because, yeah, the CV is very limiting. It's become very autonomous. Candidates are taking job descriptions and getting ChatGPT to write these very polished application questions and CVs and covering letters. So what these brands are experiencing is, everyone is actually sounding more samey than ever before. And there's a lot more volume of it. So the data is very limiting and there's lots of it. So it's very hard to find the wood through the trees, to find top talent in large application volumes. So to help applicants, there's a few things you can do. It's all around personal brand. And that's why Vizzy exists, to give people that opportunity to go beyond the CV and stand out and share more about passions and ambitions and skill sets and side hustles and stories around setbacks, stories around comebacks. It's absolutely incredible the kind of talent insight that candidates are sharing on their Vizzies that these businesses are very excited to see. But, I think going back to basics as well is hugely underrated at the moment. got to go to these careers fairs. You've got to go to these networking events that are available to you through college, through university. There's some incredible employability initiatives that we work with that put on, incredibly curated events to help young people connect with some of the world's best brands. There's a business called Diverse, and it's run by this incredible guy called Toby. And that's all about helping young Black talent have better access to great businesses. And Vizzy works with one of his projects, which is called Murky FC, which is Stormzy and Adidas's employability initiative to help people from Black heritage have better access to football internships off the pitch. I mean, what an incredible program. And Vizzy's very excited. We kind of underpin that application process. So instead of CVs that, young people are submitting Vizzies to the likes of Arsenal Football Club. And it's really cool. So you've got to tap into these organizations like Diverse and connect with people like Toby and the teams that run these incredible initiatives and really take full advantage of what they have on offer. EY Foundation is another great initiative that helps young people access the professional services industry. SALT is another one that helps young people access the FMCG space and the talent tap. They're everywhere. So what I think candidates have to try and not do, and I know that why they do it, and it is very hard right now, but we're seeing a lot of candidates adopt this spray and pray approach where they take their CV and they spray and pray. They kind of send it to as many job opportunities as possible. And in a short instance after that, you feel good because you feel like you've put yourself out there and in a lot of places. But what that's doing is clogging up the application funnel for everybody. So, which is why businesses are getting a lot of volume at the moment. And it's very hard to see great talent because, there's a lot of people adopting the spray and pray approach. So when you are submitting applications, I'd advise not to do that. I'd advise to spend better time on fewer applications to the jobs you genuinely want and focus on making those applications relevant to the job you're applying for. But there's, it is, candidates are in a world where they are having to look at how can I stand out? How can I go that extra mile? And when you go to these networking events, you've got to put a face to a name. You've got to go and say hi, go armed with some great questions, and then follow up with the recruiter or the TA leader you met on the day on LinkedIn, connect with them, tell them how great it was to meet them. These are very kind of basic tips, which I think aren't being utilized enough right now because we're so dependent online. And being able to send things off very quickly to people without really kind of sitting back and considering the business you're applying for, what they're looking for, what campaign, which celebrity have they just worked with, what have they done with that product, and talking about the work that these businesses are doing in your applications and making it relevant to you and what you've been doing at college. That goes a long way, and I think candidates can kind of tap into that a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. So what I hear you're saying is like people skills and really being able to communicate with someone in person because too much is online nowadays, and also really taking advantage of those opportunities of networking with other people. So other than kind of people skills and being able to translate why you're passionate about a business into your kind of application, what other skills when you're, let's say, writing a Vizzy application or you're creating a Vizzy application, what do you think skills wise is really important to stand out? Is it like confidence or creativity or bringing your own passion to or drive to whatever business you're applying to? What do you think is like a few or your top 3 most important tips?
So the Vizzy profile, what we've done is you can still capture your traditional CV criteria on a Vizzy. So education and work experience is all there, but we've modernized it. So you can bring to life your projects with multimedia. You can upload your essay if you want to in PDF and PowerPoints and things like that and video. The best Vizzies that we're seeing are absolutely demonstrating incredible skill sets around creativity, initiative, vulnerability, I think is a fascinating skill where, we're online and on social media. We're very au fait now with sharing our vulnerability. Moving that as a skill into the application process is starting to become a trend that we're seeing on Vizzy, where young people are opening up and sharing setbacks that they've experienced in at school, in their lives, in the home, and sharing what they've learned from those setbacks and what they want to do with it going forward. It's quite incredible. Like we're seeing some amazing stories around neurodiversity, challenges with autism, for example, and ADHD, but how that candidate is turning their neurodiversity into their strengths and what makes them different to other candidates and what those strengths are actually bringing to businesses. I'm as a dyslexic myself, it's something that I'm very passionate about. And I think Vizzy is actually demystifying what it is to be a neurodiverse thinker. And it's giving neurodiverse candidates that platform to talk about their strengths, their different and unique skill sets that not many other people have, but they have it in bucketfuls. There is an incredible candidate that reached out to us recently to just share us his Vizzy profile after submitting it to a role, which, by the way, he got successfully, which again is something which gets us out of bed in the morning and just thinks, wow, okay, that's hugely exciting. And his Vizzy profile talks about, his autism and the strengths it gives him, his ability to see things differently, and his sheer philosophy for creativity, and sharing his projects, showing the videos he's made, all off his own back, all self-taught. It's quite incredible, and he was able to really bring himself to life on the Vizzy profile. He's uploaded a video of himself talking because one of his strong skill sets is communication and presentation skills. And so, as a recruiter, when you're looking at that, we get a lot of feedback from the recruiters as well. It's like, whoa, where has this guy been? Like, where has he been? And he'd applied to this business for 2 years in a row and that hadn't got anywhere because of the CV, because of the sheer volume this particular brand gets. And then they come in and they use something like Vizzy as a filter to help the most engaged candidates have a better opportunity to go beyond the CV and stand out. And suddenly it's like, wow. So it's the catalyst, really, is what Vizzy's doing. It's connecting, great talent with great businesses who are slightly finding it difficult to find each other at the moment because of this just sheer volume that's happening, and really limiting and robotic insights. So, and there's lots of other things that people can do around Vizzy. Side hustles is a really massive trend on Vizzy. It's incredible what this young generation are doing. They want to, be a doctor or data analysis, but on the side they're jewelry makers, and they're uploading their, incredible businesses. And Etsy stories. There's incredible stories about Etsy. Like, these people are making quite a lot of money from the looks of it by just running this side hustle around products that they've made and they're selling on Etsy. Amazon stories. Got great stories around teaching assistants and, what's it called, like study buddies or something. And babysitters. These are skill sets, soft skill sets particularly, which businesses really want to see. So even if you are a babysitter, that is a fantastic thing to talk about on your Vizzy profile because you are trustworthy. You can look after kids, which is not an easy thing to do. And it shows you've got tenacity and, you work hard around your studies. And these are all the kind of stories which typically get lost in those 3 bullet points at the bottom of a CV, what's interests and hobbies. I don't think a lot of people would put babysitting also, I think a lot of people would probably think I shouldn't put babysitting on my CV. But when you bring to life your work around that on a Vizzy, it is different. It lands differently. It connects differently. And I think empowering the candidate to share their stories, to own their narratives. I don't think candidates really realize just how much skill set they're displaying. But from the business and the recruiter side, it's clear as day and abundance to them when they're seeing candidates share all the different components that these people get up to in their day-to-day lives and stuff. So yeah, it's exciting to see talent that just, we work very closely with our businesses where some of them will still accept the CV, but then they'll bring Vizzy in as a filter to kind of, help add a bit of good friction and help their most engaged candidates have that opportunity to stand out in a very large market. And so you can compare the candidate's CV with their Vizzy, and it's just wild, the difference.
I mean, like, I did waitressing, going back to your point on babysitting, I did waitressing, and the skills that taught me is, I think, more than any other like finance work experience or anything else that I'd done, because it taught me how to communicate with customers who were like upset, or if they had allergies or things like that, even if I didn't know the menu as well as I should have, because I was doing it for like on the first few days, I'd only been there a few days. And I also think it's really incredible actually, because CVs really don't show any, like, they really show like the bare minimum. They show such surface level kind of ideas. And the example that you gave about that applicant who had applied 2 years in a row and then finally got it with Vizzy, it really shows how, like, using things that other people would view as setbacks, like his autism, then that actually fueled his uniqueness, and that was such a big strength, like his communication skills and his presentation. And I think that's lost so much in his CV. And so yeah, what you're doing it's really amazing, and I'm sure I will be using it for my future job applications.
Yeah, I mean, it's free. It's been designed for the candidate to be totally free. So anybody can go on Vizzy.com and create their own Vizzy profile. And it's great to see how many ways it's being shared and used to kickstart conversations with recruiters, with dream brands. Even just having your CV and putting your Vizzy URL at the very top. So it just shows again to the business you've taken the initiative to create something that's a bit different, that shares more about you, that captures a digital profile of your side hustles, your projects, what you've been doing at college, all that stuff that you can't quite cram on a 1 to 2 page of a CV. So it's really exciting. And then we've got the other side of the business where great brands are bringing Vizzy into their hiring strategies and integrating our tech into their hiring processes. So being able to then turn around to candidates and say, okay, great, thanks for registering for this role. Now we'd like you to submit a Vizzy. And they get to ask their application questions on the Vizzy profile, and candidates can bring their answers to life using multimedia. So it's a really personable, engaging way more kind of using good tech to underpin human connection again in the hiring process. And I think that the biggest thing for me, what's super exciting, is hearing from these great brands that their talent pool on Vizzy is full of this incredibly diverse skill set, and the candidates all have kind of one big thing in common, and that's the sheer passion for this role that they're applying for, or the brand that they're applying for. So you might have one candidate that actually doesn't have that much relevant experience to working in the fashion world, but on their Vizzy, they've demonstrated total passion and commitment and loyalty to this brand because they've been a fan of this brand for years. They wear the perfume, they love the campaigns, they blog about it. They're just waiting for their big break, but they've been able to kind of showcase, their industry knowledge to this brand on their Vizzy profile, which is super exciting. And then you've got it next to this other candidate that might have relevant experience as well, but they've also got this passion. So you're kind of, what I think we're doing is leveling that playing field and letting candidates who just would love to be seen for this job the opportunity to kind of stick their hand up and go, I love what you do, I love your brand, and I'd love to be seen for this opportunity. And they go for it on Vizzy. They get to kind of bring to life all their thoughts around the brand and like we were saying, their projects and everything that has brought them here today, and they get to share where they want to go. And It's very, very, very exciting, and it's very motivating when, great businesses have found great talent that they're saying, I don't think we would have found this person had we used those traditional processes. So that's very cool.
It's really cool to see like every single person's strengths being brought out and like their uniqueness in that sense, even if they, like you said, they don't have experience necessarily in that exact industry. They're bringing skills from all these other things that they've been doing. And I know you've kind of mentioned that you don't believe in a work-life balance. I'm kind of interested about that, like that it all kind of exists together. And how do you make that constant mix of family, business, and like creativity feel exciting rather than kind of overwhelming? And do you ever kind of feel that there's like a gap? There's like a certain period where you're not talking about Vizzy, or there's a focus on something else, or is it just kind of always in the mix of things?
I'm going to be totally honest with you. It's just always in the mix. I think working with your husband and working with your brother, what gives us an edge is that we love what we do. Firstly, I kind of believe the whole work-life balance. If you love what you do, you'll feel you never really work a day in your life. If you really love what you do. And the biggest thing for me is, what I want from life and what defines success for me is getting to Sunday night and not being afraid of Monday morning. If I can get to Sunday night and be excited about it being Monday morning, that's pretty awesome, because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And with Vizzy and working with your family, the edge we have is that we love it, and so we're always talking about it. Whether we're in the car dropping our kids off to a party, on the way to the dentist, it could be a total normal day and you're not working, it's a Saturday or a Sunday, but we're kind of walking and our two little ones are running ahead of us on their scooters. And Chris and I will be talking about something that happened at work that day. So, but not out of, because we want to, because we love it. And so our business is just just moving forwards in inches, because we live together and we're family. So our business is constantly moving forward. But the work-life balance thing, I think it comes down, honestly, to see it when you do love what you do. It's not a chore. If someone said to us, try not to talk about Vizzy for 48 hours, I think we'd be miserable. That's all we've got to with this. It's like, it's our baby. We love it. So one thing we have been very careful of as parents is, when we're with the kids, we are with the kids. So when we're doing something nice together, we have to really try and be present with them in the moment, and, and listen to them. And that's something as co-founders, as parents, we have to kind of check in with each other every now and then. Like, shh, not about Vizzy right now. We've got to talk about school, all that kind of stuff. That's the only time when I think but I think we do that really, really well. And as husband and wife, as well as co-founders, we get on extremely well as well. So the whole thing is a privilege with what we're doing, and the businesses that believe in us, and, our investors. And it's a total privilege to be where we are right now. And the work-life balance, the only reason why I don't really believe it is because, like I said, when you love what you do, it's part of everything you do. So, and I do, I believe in the whole work hard, play hard ethic. I believe you make your own luck. If you land a job via that spray and pray method, I think you're lucky. But I think, you have to work really hard to make your own luck, ultimately.
It's given me, and I'm sure my listeners too, really good advice in terms of your job should not be a chore. It should be something that you're passionate about and something that you absolutely love, because I think that that's what you should be working towards, in terms of when everybody, like, even as students now are being asked, oh, what careers do you want to go into? Some people, like myself, like, honestly, I have absolutely no idea. Potentially entrepreneurship, potentially not, but that's okay, because you should be doing things which will give you skills like babysitting, like all these other things, which will eventually lead to you doing a job that you absolutely love. And I think that's so amazing to see, because often when I've spoken to my like older people who are my friends or my cousins who've just come out of uni and they have to work these jobs in the city and it's tiring for them, but then I realize that they're not actually doing things that they absolutely love day in and day out. But you do get to that point. Like, obviously you have to work really hard to get to that point.
This is the thing, right? Because like, I think also it depends what you want out of life, and it depends what you define as success. You know, what is success to you? It's like a 9 to 5 job, and you know, bringing up a family, or like brilliant. You know, my personal you know, I love working. I have this thing. I love working. I love achieving a goal. I'm fairly competitive, so this whole working environment really suits me. And so, you know, my team, for example, I would never expect my team to have the same attitude that I have to Vizzy, to work life. You know, that this is my company, this is my business, and we're in charge of a team, and it depends what you want and what makes you happy. And you know, I've done rubbish jobs, but I've actually loved them as well. That sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? But, you know, to work my way up in the theatre industry, I had to slog it out on the box office for a couple of years. And, you know, sitting at the front of the theatre with the doors open in the winter, and we had hot water bottles underneath the desk and it was freezing and no one cared about us at the top, because that is just what that is. But I loved it, and it was all part of my plan with where I wanted to go with my career in the theatre. I knew I had to start at the bottom. I knew I had to work really hard. I knew I had to give up my free time to work with the marketing department at the start of my career, to be even considered, that when there was a space in the marketing department, I might be considered for it. Like, I had that foresight, and I knew that's where I had to go. So it's, yeah, the work-life balance thing is, it's you decide what you want and what makes you happy, and you go for it. I believe you can carve it out, but it won't. You have to work hard to get what you.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I've learned so much, and I'm sure my audience has as well, not just in terms of setting goals and working towards them. And you've really showed us how much hard work pays off, but also how important it is to use things that other people would view as kind of setbacks and use that as a strength of yours, and really portray that creativity and vulnerability and inquisitivity, in fact, in your application. And I know that everybody who's listening to this will be interested in using Vizzy, so everybody listening should go check that out. But thank you so much for your time, and to anyone listening, see you next week.